I recently went down to Surrey and was staying in Chertsey to visit a family member in hospital. My journey would involve arriving in Hammersmith and changing at Richmond, and I suddenly remembered Mary Caine's Kingston Zodiac. After visiting the library, I obtained a copy of her book and was amazed to discover that Chertsey and other areas in Surrey were part of this land zodiac. Mary Caine had expanded on the work of Katherine Maltwood, who first developed the concept of a land zodiac while living at Chiltern Priory, now known as Avalon Priory, in Somerset. In 1925, she'd been commissioned to draw a map depicting the adventures regarding King Arthur, the knights and the Holy Grail. Yet she noticed the large effigy of a lion in the land, and soon the rest of the figures of the zodiac revealed themselves. Using the updated maps of her time, Mary Caine made refinements to Mortwood's zodiac, and her book was published in 1976. She described them as follows. These zodiacs are basically natural, being contoured and thus part outlined by rivers. Too large to be primarily human handiwork, though completed by man-made roads, mounds, place names, legends. These too, whether conscious or unconscious, respond to nature's dictates. And has the human part of these patterns always been deliberate? Many things indicate that they are still being formed by man, acting as unwitting agent of these laws. Queen Elizabeth I's astrologer John Dee had hinted that he was aware of land zodiacs when he shared the following. The stars, which agree with their reproductions on the ground, do lie on the celestial path of the sun, moon and planets. Thus is astrology and astronomy carefully and exactly married and measured in a scientific reconstruction of the heavens. John Dee's library in Mortlake in Surrey was the largest in the country. Yet after facing controversy in later years, John Dee died in poverty at Mortlake, which is found in the Sagittarius part of Kingston Zodiac. I was amazed to discover that Chertsey was part of the guardian of the zodiac, the Great Dog, and my journey was going to confirm this in some interesting ways. My train at Virginia Water was cancelled due to a fallen tree on the track, and the ticket officer let me out the gates to explore the town for an hour before my next train. As I pulled out Mary Caine's book, I could see that Virginia Water was positioned right on the nose and head of the dog, and she described a Tudor hunting lodge known as Great Foster's, now a hotel, where the dog's eye could be found, marked as a pool. I walked as quickly as I could up to Great Foster's, passing the dog's nose where the former Victorian mental asylum stood, known as the Holloway Sanatorium, which has since been converted into housing. Virginia comes from the Latin word Virgo, meaning maiden, and this sign was associated with Demeter or Ceres in Greek and Roman myth, as well as her daughter Persephone, who went down into the underworld of Hades or Pluto, which was guarded by a great dog known as Cerberus. Finally reaching Great Foster's Hotel, I asked the friendly staff if I could visit their garden. They opened the heavy door for me, and I was amazed by the beautiful cultivated gardens, pool and bridge. After exploring for a little while, I suddenly came across a huge statue. The Zodiac was revealing itself. Running out of time, I headed back to the station and caught my train to Chertsey to visit the hospital, which is situated on the chest, right near the heart of the dog in the Zodiac. This was the hospital where I was born and where my family member eventually passed away, so it felt pertinent that out of all the areas of the Zodiac, this was the place where I was first called to explore. The dog guards the gates and leads us into the Zodiac. The following day, I had time to explore Chertsey before hospital visiting hours and went to St Anne's Hill on his shoulder, where an old well can be found and the site of the destroyed abbey on the Dog's Back. Finally, I saw a statue near Chertsey Bridge on the Thames of a legendary heroine, Blanche Harriet, whose story was connected with a hunting dog. Harriet's story received renown after it was written about as a play by Albert Smith and was made into poems and ballads in the UK and even America. In Smith's story, Blanche was living in Chertsey during the War of the Roses, a civil war for the English throne in the 15th century. Her lover, Neville, had been fighting for the Lancastrians of the Red Rose, yet the Yorkist King Edward IV of the White Rose had just won back the throne, and therefore Neville had a price on his head. Yorkist soldiers with their bloodhound sniffed him out where he was hiding at Blanche's father's house. Mary Caine wrote the following, that Neville barehanded strangled the bloodhound that smelt him out, throwing him downstairs, but was captured and condemned to die at curfew. Blanche sent messengers for a royal pardon. But as curfew hour approached faster than the reprieve, this heroine of curfew should not ring tonight ascended the church tower and muffled the bell as it began to swing by clasping the clapper with her bare hands. Bruised and bleeding, she swung with it until it ceased and the breathless pardon arrived. After exploring the town, I brought a magazine to read aloud in the hospital, and the first story was about a dog and her puppies. The second story I chose was about a woman who eventually met a man with a dog in a cafe. I overheard the neighbouring patient talking about her friend's dogs. Perhaps she had heard the stories I was reading aloud, but the coincidences were palpable. Mary Caine spotted many more connections on the land with the dog's figure, including Docket Point near the dog's tail, with a historical point called Dog Ite nearby, and Ham on its hams. In Chertsey Museum, a Romano-British sherd of pottery depicts a dog chasing a rabbit from the 1st century. Many significant names can be found in the town as well, including Barker Road, Chaseside Gardens, Abbey Chase, Fox Hills Road, Fox Lane, and Lyne Lane, which draws the outline of the dog's chest and front leg. Chertsey was first described as Carottici, the island of Crotty, by Bede in 750 AD, and the name is thought to be Celtic. Henry VIII hunted stags on Chertsey Meads with his greyhounds in 1514, and much of the area to the north of Lyne was part of the Windsor Forest Royal Hunting Grounds, home of Herne the Hunter, which included Chertsey Common. I don't share this to support the hunting or eating of animals, and hunting in Britain has led to the extinction of many animals over the centuries, including the bear, wolf, and the boar. However, the theme of the wild hunt has ancestral roots and in its enlightened form can take place as the quest or the magical hunt. Many myths can be found describing magical hunts, such as the hunt for the unicorn, the white stag, or magical treasures including the Holy Grail. The quest for the Sacred Grail or secret knowledge by the Knights Templars has been spoken about by some writers. It perhaps doesn't matter necessarily what it is that we are hunting for in terms of the spiritual object or whether we find it, but engaging in the quest may satisfy an intrinsic human need which our ancestors engaged with more fully. Perhaps our modern day lack of connection with this ancient part of the psyche may lead to it playing out in unbalanced or unhealthy ways or obsessions. Gwyn ap Nudd of Welsh mythology was a psychopomp who led the dead to the underworld and was the leader of the wild hunt. Dormarth was the name of his great hound, and he was a member of the Welsh fairy folk and the king of Glastonbury Tor. In later myth, he was known as the Lord of Arnún, the Otherworld, and in later Arthurian tradition, he imprisoned demons there, becoming a Pluto-like figure. Archetypal hunts are seen in our constellations and star lore. The great dog of the skies is Sirius, the dog star, which relates to the Orion-Sirius mysteries. Other constellations depict impressive scenes and mythological story. According to Arthurian legends, Gwyn and Gwythyr were in a battle every May Day until Judgment Day for the hand of the maiden, Craidylad, Unlike the battling Oak King and Holly King at the solstices, Gwyn and Gwyfyr represented the changing of the seasons at Beltane in Taurus season and Samhain in Scorpio. Notable archetypal figures of the hunt have included Odin and Arthur, who also led the wild hunt, as well as Robin Hood, who hunted the king's deer, and Herne the Hunter of Windsor Forest, which is just above the head of the dog at Chertsey in the Kingston Zodiac. Mary Caine identified themes of Robin Hood strongly at the Sagittarius effigy in Richmond, which features an archer on horseback rather than a centaur. Richmond is the neighbouring town of Kingston in the Kingston Zodiac. Dogs have been hunters, guardians of other realms, and also healers. At the sanctuary of Asclepius in Epidaurus in Greece, dogs help patients to heal by licking their wounds. Their loyalty and faithfulness can be healing to the heart. It is appropriate that a hospital should be found on the Chertsey dog in the Kingston Zodiac, where healing happens and where spirits move between the realms. The dog can also lead us to the underworld of winter, the realm of initiation, lessons and soul growth, where we may be tested. Was it significant that Chertsey Abbey was built in 666 AD? The abbey had many tiles from the 13th century. One tile was adopted as the image for Chertsey Museum, depicting a grotesque lion with its tongue sticking out. Grotesques and gargoyles on churches and cathedrals had dual purpose. As protectors, they warded off evil forces, and they also reminded people of the dangers of going astray. Other tiles include depictions of the Arthurian romance of Tristan and Isolde, the Crusades, as well as images from the Zodiac. There were many variations told of Tristan and Isolde, and one version involved her dog, known as Husdent. In the 13th century adaptation of this tale called Tristan, Palamedes, a knight of the Round Table, was the hunter of the questing beast, which only the chosen could kill. The hunt for the beast was a theme in many medieval texts, including La Mort d'Arthur. A great dog also stands guard over the Glastonbury Zodiac, and his nose is marked by the raised circular mound at Borough Mump in Somerset, found on the St Michael line along with the Glastonbury Tor, and both their churches were dedicated to St Michael. Notable sites and lore, especially from old maps, reference this great dog, such as Earlake Moor near his ear and the village of Wag near Langport, found on his tail, and a Somerset wassailing song spoke about this great dog. In the first poem we have about Gwyn ap Nudd, called the Black Book of Caermarthen from around 1250 AD, the following was written about his dog. Dormath, red-nosed, ground grazing, on him we perceive the speed of thy wanderings, on Gwybr Fynnyd, cloud mount. Uwe Leach, in his book about Gwyn, suggested that this poem alluded to stargazing from the mound, and Mary Caine explained the red nose reference. Sirius, Canis Major's bright dog star, is a celestial nose, while his ground-grazing nostril at Alfred's Burrow is no less ruddy, being an artificial hill of red clay, brought perhaps in prehistoric times from Red Hill, 3 miles away. Yet over the centuries this old Celtic lore regarding Gwyn, the king of Glastonbury Tor, his dog Dormath and the wild hunt became slowly lost. St Michael replaced him as protector of the Tor after Gwyn had been unfairly demonised by St Colin, which contributed further to a paradigm which was in separation from the nature spirits and Mother Earth. Nowadays, the outline of some of the figures on modern maps are not as clear as they appeared on older maps. In the Kingston Zodiac, the dog's head is not as evident on modern maps, but its features are still there. Mary noticed some modern changes, such as the M3 motorway passing through its mouth, which has given him an impressive set of white concrete teeth. Modern-day developments which are not in harmony with the Earth can distort and change the appearance of the signs, and some of them have faded or been altered over time. The fading of some of these figures on modern maps has been a sign of our times and our collective disconnection from the greater songs of the cosmos. Now is the time for us to begin hearing these songs once more.